You can't win.
I know, and?
Come on, lady version. I honestly don't know what you see in him.
Likewise.
No! No! When I say no, you turn back around. Hey! I'm gonna be dead in a few hours, so before I go, let's have this out, you and me, once and for all. Winning? Is that what you think it's about? I'm not trying to win. I'm not doing this because I want to beat someone, or because I hate someone, or because I want to blame someone. It's not because it's fun. God knows it's not because it's easy. It's not even because it works, because it hardly ever does. I do what I do because it's right. Because it's decent. And above all, it's kind. It's just that. Just kind. If I run away today, good people will die. If I stand and fight, some of them might live. Maybe not many, maybe not for long. Hey, you know, maybe there's no point in any of this at all, but it's the best I can do. So I'm gonna do it, and I will stand here doing it till it kills me. You're going to die too. Someday. What would that be if you thought about it? What would you die for? Who I am. It's where I stand, where I stand. It's where I fall.
Hello and welcome to Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast with me, Matthew, and as always, I am joined with...
Hello, hello, it's gone.
There we go. Jesus Christ.
I wasn't sure if this was going to be an extended one today or a short one, you know, I was waiting.
I just think you weren't listening.
Because sometimes when you lengthen your width, Discord decides, oh, you've done the same note for too long, this is just background noise. I mean, I was just waiting for you to cut back in with a if, but, you know, it was a short
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. We're clearly sitting next to each other right now. Like, you're sitting right next to me. I don't know why what this Discord discussion is when you're right there.
Let's high five. You ready?
Wow.
Seamless.
I'm sure I was high-fiving at the same time. I'm still high-fiving, just to be sure. This week, we are continuing our look at Doctor Who in chronological order, with each Doctor, that is. We have been doing it, lovely way to start the podcast, all year. Starting with the first Doctor, William Hartnell, and all the way up. And we are on Capaldi at the moment, and we looked at the Series 10 Part 1 final, World, Enough and Time. And this week we are looking at The Doctor Falls, the conclusion to Series 10, if you don't count the Christmas special. I don't count Christmas specials as part of the series. I don't know about you.
Depends. I think The Doctor Falls... I'm sorry, the Christmas Twice Upon a Time feels like a season final because it concludes the fact that Peter Capaldi is regenerating. It also concludes Bill's storyline as well, and it feels like it links together because the next one is technically a sequel to the 10th Planet, and this is a prequel to the 10th Planet. So it's interesting.
It is interesting, but all I'm saying is it doesn't say episode 13 under Twice Upon a Time. It's not part of the series. It's not part of the season. It's a Christmas special is separate, however you want to call it. But this was the final for Series 10, for all extensive purposes, and it's a darn good one at that. It's a good one. And I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. Have you got any writers or behind the scenes stuff or whatever the heck you want to call it this week before we jump into the episode?
No.
Wow. Awesome. Well, if you want to hear some stuff about the director for these two parts, Rachel Talalay, you should go back and listen to last week's episode where there's a very big deep dive into her career and life in the movie/TV making industry. Anyway, let's jump into this episode without much more of ado with the Doctor falls over. Wow.
Is that going to be the title of the episode? And it's just an image of Peter Capaldi falling over or something. Like tripping over a rock.
Maybe. It might be. Who knows?
Missy. Seriously. Why?
Oh. Because he's right. Because it's time to stand with him. It's where we've always been going, and it's happening now, today. It's time to stand with the Doctor.
No. Never. Missy! I will never stand with the Doctor!
Yes, my dear, you will.
Don't bother trying to regenerate. You got the full blast. You see, Missy, this is where we've always been going. This is our perfect ending. We shoot ourselves in the back.
So this episode opens up in the lovely countryside, definitely the countryside, as we pan down through the fields to see a horse and carriage walking past some very strange looking scarecrows that are just straight up, these are the Cybermen that were getting experimented on. Mm-hmm. Why were they hung up as scarecrows? Do they ever talk about that? Because obviously, like, some of them, I guess it's the ones they've shot that they just hang up because they don't know what to do with the bodies. Because, like, obviously these Cybermen attack and then they shoot them. But, like, do any of them attack by breaking out of the, like, scarecrow posts that they're on? This crucifix?
I think,
because, like, what's the point of this?
I think later on it's presumed that some of them broke free from their cross. But, you know, just bury them. It would take longer for them to claw their way out of the ground than... you know, just detaching themselves from a bit of wood and some wire, you know?
Yeah, I guess it takes longer to dig a hole. If you don't know, like, how long it's going to be until the next attack, you don't want to be caught, like, halfway down a 6-foot hole. Also, you know, you want to just be like...
Yeah, I guess if you're digging, how long until you dig towards the, you know, the metal surface?
True, it doesn't seem to be that thick of a layer, does it? Yeah, it doesn't seem, because like the ship burst through it without much of a problem.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's not the thickest barrier between them.
But yeah,
but we follow.
Yeah, as we discussed, the scarecrows are very reminiscent, and also the setting of the episode is kind of very reminiscent of human nature. You know, it's kind of got that good old 1940s, 30s kind of vibe. But Moffat wanted it to seem like it belongs in any era, possibly the Waltons, which was a show about the rural life in the 30s. I don't know if you've ever seen the Waltons.
Why would I have seen it? Yeah, it does have a sort of, this can be anywhere, anytime sort of vibe, where you've got people living in the countryside using horse and carriage, but also they have shotguns that have like laser stuff on them. Like they've got like this little light up LED thing on the back of the gun, like they're future guns set in the past. You know, it's this weird mesh of timelines because they're on a spaceship, of course. But we follow this little girl throughout her day, essentially, and when nighttime comes and all the Cybermen attack, it's kind of straight out of, like, The Walking Dead, almost, where you see these zombie-like Cybermen marching towards the house that everybody has to shoot, and then they just tie them up after they've shot them, for some reason, even though there's a lake right there. Like, drop them in the lake. Throw them in the lake. Like, they're made of metal, they'll sink.
You know, I don't know. Maybe they won't sink. Maybe they'll just come back out. I don't know, like the Terminator, I guess, or some kind of non-giver-upper guy from The Simpsons.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Not a clue. I probably would if I saw it, but off the top of my head, I haven't a clue.
It's Principal Skinner chasing Bart because he took a day off of school, and he just walks into the water and he sinks. I mean, he comes back out of the water and he just continues walking. It's a great one. So yeah, in the original draft of this opening, the little girl would actually narrate what was going on. And I think it's better without the narration. In the original draft, it was she feels the scarecrows look sad, and the little boy tells her the scarecrows are actually being oppressed by the system. She says everyone knew something was wrong with the world, but no one actually just talked about it. And the people think the number in the sky is something religious, which is interesting. Some interesting little Stephen Moffatisms, but I think it's better just left ambiguous.
Yeah, I think the less we know, the better, because the second you start pulling at this thread, the whole thing will unravel. You know, and I think like the visual storytelling of kind of letting us come to our own conclusions about who these people are, what they think about the numbers in the sky, do they know they're on a spaceship, etc., etc. Like that is, those questions not being answered, I think, are much more interesting than if they get answered. You know,
and also this opening is kind of jarring because the last episode left off of in kind of like a hospital, whereas this one's like, oh yeah, we're in the open fields and we're in the sky. There's skies everywhere, and it just feels jarring. It feels different. You know what I mean?
That's what I like. That's how you know you've written something well. You know, if you set up a cliffhanger. This is how you structure stories. You set up a cliffhanger where you're like, oh my god, what's going to happen next? And then the next episode starts and you go, ha ha ha, here's something completely different. You know, you're like, this isn't what you were expecting. And now you're even more hooked because you're like, wait, what does this mean? What's going on now? You get sucked in even more because you're left with those questions unanswered. It's a good bit of writing from the Moffat guy.
Yeah, we've done, 4 series finals in a row, and each part 1 feels very different to each part 2, because I could go through them, but it's a waste of time. You can just think about it for a bit. Like part 1 of Bad Wolf is the reality show stuff, and then Parting of the Ways is the Doctor versus the Daleks and stuff like that, which is how I think a 2-parter should be written. You don't... It feels like 2 different stories in a way, but also feels connected, whereas a lot of classic Doctor Who 4-parters feel like it should have just been 2 stories, 2 episodes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. They follow the little girl through her day as she's like the day comes and she's like walking through a field or something, and then a giant spaceship explodes through the ground, and we're like, oh my god, I never saw this coming because I didn't watch last week's episode. And then through the mist and smoke, a Cyberman emerges holding an unconscious or dead Doctor, and we then cut to the title credits. It's a pretty cool shot, really, of the Doctor like hanging in the arms of a Cyberman surrounded by mist.
Oh yeah, it's great. I really love it, and also it's just like that classic pose of the character unconscious in the arms of the other person. Doctor Who's done it multiple times before and since. Like, I think the biggest one I remember is the Doctor holding Amy Pond in Asylum of the Daleks. It's just a classic pose.
It is. Right now, it just makes me think of Guardians 3.
Yeah.
Whenever I see that pose, which that's Karen Gillan that's holding Star-Lord. It's all connected. It's all connected.
What a great opening for that movie! Incredible opening.
Good movie. Great movie.
It is.
Good time. Also, this opening scene before we cut to the title credits is extremely similar in tone to last week's episode, where we open up with the Doctor stumbling out of the TARDIS and being like, I'm gonna regenerate, grr, which, we don't even see in this episode until like right at the end. It's the cliffhanger for the Christmas special, which really just further reinforces the whole, I kind of want the Bill getting shot to be the cold open for the last episode. Like, I think that's a way more interesting cold open than I'm going to regenerate, especially because it at least then doesn't make this feel like we've seen it already with the Doctor dying. Like, we've already seen the Doctor is about to die. We know he's not dead here because we've saw him regenerate in the snow, so it kind of loses that tension for me.
Also, I kind of miss the idea of a regeneration special or episode just being kind of a normal episode, no hints towards regeneration like the classic series.
A surprise regeneration, a surprise regeneration would be cool.
I mean, it wouldn't be a surprise regeneration because everyone would be talking about the fact the current actor is going to regenerate. But imagine being a kid and like 40 minutes, actually maybe like 35 minutes towards at the end of a 45-minute episode, suddenly you realize the Doctor might die, and then he does. That'd be incredible. But
yeah, like I think if we assuming that the current rumors for the 60th anniversary aren't true, which I hope they aren't. I really hope that they aren't true. But assuming that those rumors are not true, we could get this in like episode 3 of the 60th anniversary, where David Tennant just ends up being like killed or has to sacrifice himself suddenly and then regenerates into Ncuti, and then it's like, oh my god, there's a new Doctor, what? And then Christmas special, meet the new Doctor, wahoo. So we could have something similar to you just watching like, oh, the 60th anniversary's here, that's nice, yay, and then next thing you know, there's a brand new Doctor in front of you. And if you're a kid who's just like into Doctor Who and doesn't follow the news, that could be a pretty goddamn cool experience, unless they do what the leaks are, which I don't want them to do. I don't want them to do that. That was a bad idea. Rewrite it, Russell.
I mean, we are pretty certain that Ncuti is going to appear in the episode and have like a fairly significant role. So it's going to be fairly foreshadowed that the Doctor is going to regenerate anyway, regardless of whether or not the leaks are true or not. But David Tennant regenerating in the first place in 2009 was so heavily foreshadowed. They pulled us along for the ride there of the regeneration at the end of the Stolen Earth, and then calling the Christmas special the next Doctor. And then, the whole thing of Planet of the Dead was, oh, he will knock 4 times, and that's where that bit starts, and it feels over.
I loved the knock 4 times thing though. Like, I remember being a kid, and whenever someone was not like, where they tease out the knocking 4 times thing across multiple episodes, and like I remember whenever it happened, I was always on the edge of my seat. Like when it happens in like Waters of Mars and stuff like that. When I first saw that as a kid, I was like, no, not yet. Like.
But yeah, just a regeneration that happens as a surprise, that'd be great.
Yeah. We then open up the episode proper to knocked out Capaldi waking up on the rooftop to see Missy and the Master standing side by side, and we then like cut to black and white. To kind of see what was going on, and the Doctor was getting beat up by both of them. Like they were just straight up like, let's punch the Doctor, the Master and Missy, and so they just punched him a bunch, and like knocked, and like they knock him into a computer thing, and he's like, oh, when you did that, I typed really quick, and like when they later on flash back to him typing, it's so cheesy. Like he's typing for like 5 seconds, really obviously, when he falls onto that command. I'm like, this episode's being silly right now. This entire scene, like there's some good stuff in it, and like the chemistry between John Sim and Michelle Gomez is incredible, and I absolutely love the Missy Doctor relationship that they tease later in this scene when Missy's like, oh, I was just lying, I was always on your side, Doctor, ha ha ha, but like they're caught in between. This is some of the cheesiest stuff I've seen in this in Capaldi's era and ages.
I mean, there's also like Nardole running away. I mean, there's a dramatic snap zoom of him looking back for a bit. And it is very cheesy, but also Doctor Who is cheesy, It's kind of like the MacGyver thing of how does he get out of this situation? Oh, he managed to type really quickly, and this was planned all along. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
He reprogrammed all of the Cybermen in 5 seconds flat.
But yeah, it's fun. It's goofy. It's silly. This episode is pretty dark for most of it, so it's kind of nice that we get this little silly moment at the start. I kind of appreciate when Doctor Who can be silly and serious in the same space.
We also get explanation as to how John Sim is back, and the answer to that is the Time Lords cured him and sent him on his way. So they were like, "Oh, you're a skeleton man who eats people. Don't worry, we have a vaccine for that." They just gave him the little sandwich, and then they kicked him out the door, back off to do whatever he wants to do, frolicking through the woods. I
mean,
how any of this works is a good question, because isn't the Time Lords that took him in?
Yeah.
Weren't they like about to die in the Time War?
Yeah, very.
Like weren't like
Yeah, they're in a time bubble, and also, you know, they can't escape from the time bubble, and it's.
But no, at this point, Gallifrey is back. Like, the Doctor has saved Gallifrey at this point. They're out of the time bubble. Like, Capaldi did that in Series 9. He gets Gallifrey back.
I guess.
Because that's when he punches through the wall a bunch of times. And then he's like, "Oh my God, I'm on Gallifrey." And then he's like, "Oh, Clara, you're alive again." When he rescues all the Time Lords. And is that the point in which John Sim's master was like, "Oh, I can escape now, woohoo!" And then he goes off, and because of TARDIS, he can time travel around. So that's when we meet Missy before that point. Yeah. I guess that would make sense for him. Like, John Sim's on the planet there. I don't know. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
It's the classic Doctor Who trope of the master always somehow finds
the master
a way to
lives.
escape.
Yes.
You know? Like, how does Missy get off of a ship once she regenerates at the end of this episode? There's no more TARDISes around.
Well, how does Missy regenerate at the end of this episode when John Sim explicitly says, "You will not regenerate. I have shot you with so much laser that you can't regenerate."
Oh, you know, but maybe she turned into a snake creature again. You never know. Some of my favorite moments are just the fact when this scene opens up, it's Missy and the Master just kind of discussing the ways we could kill the Doctor, or we could push him off of the building, but then we'd be running up and down all night. God knows how many regenerations you have left. It's great stuff. It kind of reminds me of a relationship between Mrs. Lovett and Sweeney Todd, and Sweeney Todd is just them delightfully being just murderers. You know, it's great.
It's a line of dialogue that wouldn't work as a threat anymore in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
How many regenerations have you got left? Oh, I'll be up and down all night. And it's like, yeah, you will, because I have infinite regenerations. You know, I physically can't die.
I mean, does he technically might know that he has infinite regenerations at this point, because this is after the Time Lord grants him new regeneration.
At this point,
yeah,
he would assume he has 13, surely. He would be like, "Oh, I have 13 regenerations."
Who knows?
And then when Jodie shows up, it's like, "Oh, I have all the regenerations." Until they change it again. Until they change the rules again.
Yeah, this whole thing gets ridiculous, you know? You can't stick around and think about the canon of how everything works, you know? It's all deliberately vague.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point of the show.
The Missy and the Master are kind of just dancing above a clock tower while the city is basically being bombed in the background. It reminds me a lot of when Rose and Captain Jack are dancing on top of Big Ben while the Blitz is happening in The Empty Child. So it feels the same. We're even I think we're listening to the same song. I'm not sure for sure, but it's a fun parallel. And also a fun parallel is where the Master wheels the Doctor towards the edge and basically shows him the destruction he's caused, which reminds me a lot of when I think it's the last of the Time Lords, where the Master wheels the older Doctor towards a window to show him the chaos he's caused. It's a fun. This Master loves wheeling an old man Doctor.
It's his favorite pastime. I bet he was really sad that he couldn't make Capaldi older, though. You know, he's like, "I don't get to use my old man ray on you like I did last time.
I can't turn you into Dobby this episode.
Turn you into We also, like, after the Doctor reveals that he's reprogrammed the Cybermen and the Cybermen start attacking, I think the most interesting twist happens in this episode where suddenly the Master has to help the Doctor. and you see both masters, like John Sim and Missy, end up helping the Doctor, and they form like this de facto team to fight off Cybermen. And I thought it was such a interesting dynamic to do, where it's like, the master at this point has to be a good guy to save his own skin. You know, like he's fighting the Cyberman with the Doctor just so that he cannot die right now. Causing that team up so that they're not just antagonists the entire time fighting. They're actually on the side of our heroes. Is such an interesting dynamic to have. It makes the episode way more compelling to watch.
When we've covered the Pertwee era episodes, and it's the Master, he does the same thing, unlike the Sea Devils, where he has to form an alliance with the Doctor to defeat the Sea Devils, because the Doctor kind of goes against him, whatever. I do love watching the Doctor and the Master kind of have to team up, forced to team up. Like, also in The End of Time, where at the end of the episode, they kind of team up together. It's really nice to see whenever it happens.
Yeah, that bit's goosebumps. That bit gives you goosebumps. Like,
it really is a friendship here. And also Missy, of course, in this scene, is just wanting to be friends with the Doctor, but she's kind of like a drug addict, where basically her former self is kind of making her want to go back to the life of hating the Doctor, wanting to try to kill the Doctor. It's a fun character thing to have.
Yeah, Missy, the entire episode is like torn in two places, where it's like, oh, I love being evil, but also I was about to become a good guy, and I was kind of enjoying that as well, and I don't know what to do. And like, there's like that moment after where she like knocks out the Master with the sonic umbrella, I guess is what she has, and she's like, I was lying the whole time, of course I'm on your side, Doctor. And Capaldi's like, are you being serious right now? And he like stares at her, and the second that he lets go, like there's this like pause on Missy's face where she's like, oh, I don't even know what to think right now. And it's just like, she is incredible. Like, Missy's straight up just one of my favorites.
Yes.
Absolutely incredible arc she goes on. It's so goddamn good.
And it's great that we finally have a multi-master story, and it's this late on in Missy's story arc where she's not being overshadowed by John Sim. I was about to say Roger Delgado for some reason. But she's not being overshadowed at all. It's such a great character arc for actually both of them, I would say. Like, John Sim even gets a decent character arc in this story. It's great fun to just watch them both interact.
Yeah, no, it is a lot of fun, and it just makes me sad that we never got to see anything too interesting with the Master that came after this. What's his name? I know his name.
Sacha
I know his name. Sacha Dhawan, yes. Sacha Dhawan's Master, because he just ended up, we spoke about this last week, he ended up being the mustache twirling, I'm so evil, mwahaha, villain version of the Master, when you could have done something so interesting after this development with Missy, but I guess he just went insane again after the regeneration.
They do kind of go for something interesting in Power of the Doctor, where it's kind of revealed that all along the Master just wanted to be the Doctor because he was jealous, I guess. But it's not really. It doesn't feel like a character arc. It feels more like there's no sense of discussion between the Doctor and the Master in that story. Or, like, I can't even think of any scenes where the Doctor and the Master are kind of communicating in the 13th Doctor era, where they're kind of like enemies or friends or just want to be friends. It's kind of convoluted. It's like, mostly what I think of that relationship as being is the Master monologuing the entire time. That's all I can think about.
Yeah.
He's a monologue machine.
Yeah, I think about that, and I think about the amazing Rasputin scene.
Yeah. Which
those
so out
are
of
the
place.
two things.
It feels so out of place.
I love it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. It made the episode better. Everything is better because it was in it. It was an incredible scene.
Also,
I love when the Dalek and the Cybermen look at, or is it just Daleks that look at each other? Whenever they like look at each other when he's doing his dance. Yeah, like, I loved his dance. His dance was great. It was such a good scene. Loved it. The most character and personality that Chibnall's ever written for anyone. Like,
and there's no reason for any of it, but it's fun. I feel like if we ever did Power of the Doctor, which we were going to think about doing next week, if we ever did Power of the Doctor, I feel like we'd be more negative towards the episode than we were initially. But, we can leave that episode up as a nice little moment of us being positive about the end of the Chibnall era.
I think you would be negative because you're a negative dude.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas I'm a true Doctor Who fan and I love Doctor Who. You love hating on Doctor Who, and that's the relationship that we've got. You're just a hater.
What I've been a hater about in the past is the fact that Murray Gold tends to reuse tracks in Series 10. In this scene, he reuses, I don't know what the name of the song is, but it's the Gallifrey song. It's the da-na, da-na-na, na-na-na. It's that song, but also he just records and it feels appropriate for the scene, and it feels nice to have a little callback because obviously John Sim is in this scene. Feels like a character theme. It feels nice. I really love this song in here.
Fair enough.
It's called This Is
I
Gallifrey.
can't tell you that I noticed it. This is Gallifrey, which is funny because it's not Gallifrey. They're on a spaceship. But the Doctor, after they start fighting off the Cyberman, the Doctor hops up and he uses his sonic screwdriver as a communicator.
Yeah.
So it's a sonic screwdriver, a whiteboard pen, and a communicator all rolled up into one. To call Nardole to be like, hey, Nardole, have you been useful? And Nardole shows up in the worst looking spaceship you've ever seen in your life, and I absolutely love it. And he's like, yes, of course I have. Look, I got a spaceship. Drops down a ladder, the Master climbs up onto it, but before the Doctor can get on board, he gets bear hugged by a Cyberman and electrocuted with effects straight out of Flux. And Missy decides to leave him because she's like, oh, you're just slow us down. Whoops, okay, bye. But the Cyberman Bill shoots the Cyberman in through the back with a big laser head. And it's have we ever seen them use laser heads? Is that an established thing, or is that a new thing for this episode with the Mondasian Cybermen?
We covered the 10th Planet last year.
I don't remember them using laser.
remember.
Didn't they? No, they had guns, didn't they? They had guns. They carried chest guns,
I can't
didn't they?
quite remember. It's been a while. I'm not the biggest fan of Cybermen episodes as it is, but I like the 10th Planet. I like the Tomb of Cybermen Invasion, stuff like that, but 70s and 80s weren't the best years for Cybermen.
Cybermen are they're silly guys.
But yeah, this scene,
we get,
I feel like there should have been a reshoot here, or some more of an indication that the Doctor, this is what causes the Doctor to regenerate, because I remember being kind of confused about why the Doctor kind of starts having regeneration energy later on in the episode, because there's no hint towards the fact that this kills the Doctor. We see the Doctor get knocked out and zapped every fucking week, basically. There's no indication that this is the final straw for the Doctor. And it caused a lot of confusion back in the day, because I remember people being like, so how did the Doctor regenerate? What happened?
I think the issue is it happens so early in this episode. This is an hour-long episode, and he gets zapped 10 minutes in.
Yeah.
So you have 50 minutes where he's not regenerating, and he's not really even hinting that he's about to regenerate for most of the episode. He's just kind of doing his own thing. And it's like, oh, is that what killed? And it's also it's not a glamorous way to go, which I don't think the Doctor's death needs to be. I'm all for the Doctor just randomly getting shot, but it's not even shown as an impactful moment where you're like, oh my god, this is so dramatic. The Doctor's being choked to death and electrocuted right now. It's he's been picked up and we think he's about to die, but he's been saved by Bill. Actually, everything's okay. It's it's lacking in impact for sure.
Yeah, he does get knocked out, which is, I guess, an indicator, but there's no sense of regeneration glow. It feels like there should be 2 seconds of just him glowing orange or whatever, glowing orange, which would have been would have been more of an indicator. But we get it, and now I think.
There's some really fun jokes in the ship with Nardole when John Sim shows up and he's like, the Doctor said he always hated you, let's go. And Nardole kind of shrugs him off. Then Missy comes up and she's like, the Doctor said he always hated you, now let's go. Which is just, comedy comes in threes, but that worked really well. I love that. Love that setup and that payoff of the Doctor hates Nardole, because the Doctor hates Nardole. That's just a fact.
I guess. But also the Master being like, oh, does this ship have guns at the front? That'd be nice.
guns. Yeah.
Which is such a...
I mean,
I love these little Doctor Who lines that feels like it just belongs in Doctor Who. It's kind of like British-isms, you know? It just feels nice.
yeah, it's just that dry sort of dry jokes where you're not even really saying a joke, you're just saying a silly sentence. Like and we also get a shot of Bill, like they can't fly away because Bill Cyberman is holding the ship by the ladder, and I feel like that doesn't make sense, but okay.
Why don't you think it makes sense?
It's a little... Because it's a rope ladder. So, like, if the ship tried pulling away
Okay.
and Bill's holding on to it, the rope's just going to break. Because the resistance of the ship's engines meets the resistance of Bill the Cyberman, and it's just going to pull apart the ladder.
It's a really strong alien rope ladder. You know, it's made of like steel, I guess.
Yeah,
but
even then, like, I feel like it would just rip apart. It's really thin. Like,
but also, this feels like Stephen Moffat just watched Captain America: Civil War, because it's the same move, except Captain America holds it by the landing. What do you call
the
those?
landing gear bit.
The
pad thing. Yeah. There's also, like, there's a really fun wide shot where Bill's looking over, like, Capaldi on the ground, and she's holding the spaceship like a kite.
Yeah.
Like, it is very silly. And from there, we cut back to the little girl on the grass in the spaceship and the floor above. Because now we're back to where we were at the start of the episode. Wow, look at that. That's writing. You start in the future, you go to the past, you're back in the future. Gee whiz, how did they come up with it?
It's like that episode of Rick and Morty where this guy is reading a screenplay to Morty, and it starts like halfway through the story, and then Morty pushes him downstairs and says, "Next time, fucking start a story at the start of the story."
Yeah. And don't start your story where it gets interesting. If your story isn't interesting to begin with, don't tell the story. Like, but Nardol's like, hey, take us to where it's safe, because everybody is here, not just Bill and the Doctor. Nardole and both Masters are here as well. And this is where we end up spending the rest of the episode, essentially, is at this farmhouse. Which is a fun set to be at. It's a fun location for this episode to be, because the last episode was set almost entirely in the hospital and the spaceship, and now we're still in the spaceship, but we're out in the countryside, and it feels different. It's a funky vibe. I like it. It feels more like we're trying to survive, you know.
How do you feel about these nighttime scenes? Because they are clearly shot in the day, but obviously there's a filter over the
nighttime.
Camera. You know,
nighttime scenes. Yeah, I love how, like, in the wide shots, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, because it's an alien ship.
Those are those aren't stars in the sky, and it's not the sun in the sky. Those are like bright LED lights from the roof of the ship. You know, like it makes sense that nighttime is bright, and never really gets dark. So I guess it makes sense, and it's a logical way around it, as silly as it does make it look. Like,
my problem is it kind of makes everything look kind of smudgy and just I find it kind of distracting. I felt the same way about, The Walking Dead started doing the same thing in like season 2. It just gets really distracting, because you can tell it's shot in the daytime, because there's obviously a sun out, but it's got a filter over it, and I just can't gel with it. But also, I have to keep reminding myself, oh yeah, this is an alien spaceship, it's not natural light, so of course it looks unnatural, but kind of also just looks smudgy, I guess. It's very strange.
Yeah. I understand the complaint. I think they can logic their way out of it in this episode, so it doesn't super bother me as much as it does bother me in things like The Walking Dead and stuff, where it's like, you're casting a shadow. It's nighttime, though. But this episode then continues on through into the night as we cut to like a barn where we see Bill. Oh my God, Bill. Bill's okay. She's not a Cyberman. I guess it was all a dream. Which I really like this dynamic, this idea as well, of where like this lady's like, hey, you have to go live in this barn, by the way, you're not allowed in the house. And Bill's like, what do you mean I'm not allowed in the house? What's going on? I'm me, I'm just regular old me. And I like the cutting back and forth we do from Bill's perspective and everyone else's perspective. Especially, it happens a little bit later on in the episode. But when she's just outside talking with the doctor, and whenever she's talking, we see like her.
Yeah.
But then when it cuts to the doctor's perspective, it's the Cyberman again.
Well,
it's just heartbreaking every single time.
In that case, it's usually not the doctor's perspective, because the whole point of this episode is the doctor sees Bill for who she is. He's the only person who sees Bill. Everybody else sees the Cyberman, but occasionally they have to obviously cut to a Cyberman to make a point that, oh my god, she's realizing she's a Cyberman, so it goes to a point of view of Bill instead. We'll get into that, but yeah. It's really well done, though.
It is. It's also, like, why is Bill the only one that's able to resist being a Cyberman? Is it just because she's got that main character energy?
I think part of it, at least in my head canon, is
she loves her son too much.
I think it's because of the pilot situation. Her girlfriend is inside her.
Yeah,
I
the
guess?
puddle.
Does she live inside her? Or
Not yet. Not yet.
I
don't know. She keeps falling out her eyeballs.
Yeah, is it part of her that's in the eyeballs, and she's somewhere else in space or whatever, and she can manifest herself from the puddle? I don't. It's been a while since I've seen the first episode of the season.
Same, but the puddle is dumb anyway, so I try not to think about it. But yeah, I guess she's just got main character energy. She's able to resist the Cybermanisms because the script said she needed to.
It's one of those things where, she's the main character, but also the whole season she's been really proud of the fact that, she's a black person, she's also gay, and that's something that gives her a lot of pride, and that's, of course, that would mean she would be able to defeat the conditioning or whatever. But,
So being gay makes you beat Cybermen?
But, it's the fact
Is that what you're saying? If you're gay, you can resist the Cybermen?
Not quite, but, it's the fact that she's proud of who she is, and she's aware of her identity and all that shite. As part of
I get the conflict that they're going for, and it's a cool character study of this person whose identity is so opposite to what a Cyberman is, being turned into a Cyberman and stripped of everything that makes them them. I just why is that happening? Yeah. Why are they able to resist that?
Yeah, and also the thing is that, I would say 10% of all Cybermen would be able to defeat for conditioning if that were true. It's a little bit of a character arc. She's able to do this because she's so proud of herself, and she's able to. There's some sort of perception filter.
She met James Corden, and he gave her the secret. He was like, "This is how you beat the Cyberman. You just gotta wish really hard, and then the magic doesn't work."
James Corden, is he gonna pop up in the 60th? That's gonna be great.
I hope so.
Best character.
Really make. What if he's the next Doctor?
Oh, so good.
The episode continues as Bill is sitting in the barn, and little girl from earlier in the episode comes over to her, and she's like, "Oh my god, you're so scary. Here's a mirror." Bill's like, "Why am I scary?" Then she looks in the mirror, and she's like, "Holy heck, there's a Cyberman in this mirror. Where's that guy?"
It's like a dog looking at its reflection.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really great practical effect as the camera kind of pans around behind Bill, and it reveals in the mirror it's a Cyberman. It's a practical effect because there's obviously this Rachel Talalay shooting around with budget, going for as little CGI as possible, and it's such a there's some great Texas switches in this episode where the Cyberman and Bill are kind of being interchangeable. It's so great. It's so good. I love some of this stuff here.
It is very good. The little girl goes running out all scared that she's upset Bill, but the doctor is there. And he offers her a jelly baby because this is Doctor Who, and it's a really easy way to make us all laugh, clap, and fart at the same time whenever the doctor offers somebody a jelly baby.
What I love about the doctor and his interaction with this little girl here, he's just like, it's all right. You're trying to be kind, giving her a mirror. It's fine. You're just being nice to her. Have a jelly baby. It's like, it's a really nice little rational moment from the doctor where he's understanding of where the little girl is coming from.
It is. It's a really cute moment, and also I haven't had a jelly baby in ages, in a long time. Fancy jelly baby. They're pretty good.
Yeah,
they're pretty good.
They're great. You know, I'm surprised.
Yeah,
Has Jelly Babies ever done a promotion with Doctor Who? I feel like they should have.
It would be insane if they haven't, because Doctor Who's been giving them free marketing for 30, 40 years.
Ever since 1966 with the second Doctor. It's over almost 60 years now.
Oh, Christ, yeah.
Like Jelly Babies should at least do Doctor Who packaging with Doctor Who stickers inside
for the 60th anniversary.
Collect all
for
15
the 60th
Doctors.
Oh my god, the amount of jelly babies I would buy if they did a tie-in with the 60th. I mean, the Magic the Gathering cards are about to come out. I haven't played Magic since I was 16 years old, but I'm gonna buy those cards just because they're Doctor Who themed. You're sitting on some money, jelly baby people. I don't even know who makes jelly babies. Is it Hasbro? No, they make board games. Who's the guy that do Haribo? Is it Haribo that do jelly babies?
Maker.
There's probably, there'll be a million companies that do jelly babies, but the official jelly babies, Bassett's.
Yeah, what else do Bassett's do?
Licorice. Licorice all sorts. Yeah.
I mean, also speaking of Bassett's and licorice, the Candyman is a Doctor Who villain, which is directly influenced by the licorice mascot. Have you ever seen the Candyman and the licorice man in the same room?
Yes,
in the same
and their
room?
cousin, the Michelin Man. Their cousin, the Michelin Man. Yeah, no, I love licorice. Licorice is one of my favorites. Love it.
Licorice is one of those things that I keep on forgetting whether or not I like it or not. I tried it a year ago, and I just remembered I do not like it. So until 5 years, in 5 years, I'll probably forget whether or not to like it.
I adore it. I adore the licorice too much. Where if I have a big bag of licorice, that's getting done. I can't stop myself. I will eat too much licorice.
The thing is, I feel the same way about jelly babies. Sometimes I have to put jelly babies in another room, so I don't just eat a whole packet in one. That's how I ration myself. Just put it in another room. You're too lazy to go up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Not having easy access. That's why I tend to just not buy snacks. Because if I buy snacks, I will just eat them. I will just not stop eating them. Because I have no willpower as a human being. I give into my temptations immediately.
But yeah, going back to the episode, Stephen Moffat was kind of inspired by Quantum Leap as a way to keep Pearl Mackie inside of this episode. If you haven't seen Quantum Leap, it's about a guy called Sam Beckett who kind of travels through time in different bodies, and he keeps jumping into other people's bodies, kind of. But we see this,
and it's a canon. Quantum Leap is part of Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
That's great.
So.
but yeah, as a way of keeping the main actor Scott Bakula, which is such a great name, Scott Bakula. Every episode,
straight up a vampire.
Every episode stars Scott Bakula, and he's just in different clothes. Occasionally, we'll cut to mirror shots of a different actor of the person he's in the body of, but that's just a device we use to keep showing us Scott Bakula. It's a decent show, and also Rachel Talalay would later go on to direct the reboot of Quantum
Which apparently sucks. I think the reboot's supposed to suck.
I hear mixed things about it. Yeah, it's one of those things.
Yeah. But no, the Sunny episode, it's a musical episode where they get transported into the bodies of these black people, and they're like, "Oh my God, what's happened? Why are we not white anymore?" And they go around singing. It's where the gif of Frank saying, "I'm going to say the N word" comes from.
I need to see that.
And
show.
then the whole time Dee thinks that this is a quantum leap scenario where it's, you know, they've quantum leaped into somebody, and then they end up meeting Scott Bakula, who's like a janitor.
Yes.
And he's like, "Oh my God, you can see me, like you knew it was me." But then it turns out that episode was all a dream of the old black man that sleeps in the same bed as Dee, Dennis, and Mac for that season. But then as he's walking past the mirror, we see that the old black man is actually Scott Bakula, who's quantum leaped. So quantum leaping is canon in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
You know, you talk about that show a lot to me, and that's the first time I've actually perked up and thought, I need to watch this show, because that sounds entertaining as hell. That's the first time.
It's one of the greatest shows of all time. I have seen it so many times, over and over and over. It is phenomenal show. But we then get a really good scene back in this episode of the Doctor and Bill chatting in this barn, where it's basically Bill trying to understand what's happened because she has no memories of being turned into the Cyberman, and the Doctor trying as easily as he can to give the news that you're a Cyberman now. And he kind of like steps around it too much to the point where Bill gets really angry and fires a big laser beam out of her head and blows up the barn in a very, very cool, realistic explosion.
Oh yeah, it's the most realistic explosion you've ever seen in your life. Actually, not like a filter on top of the screen or whatever. But yeah, what's great about this scene is Peter Capaldi avoiding eye contact towards the start of a scene, which is, you know, because he feels so guilty about what he did to Bill the entire time he was monologuing 10 years past. Like, I would feel so guilty myself if that happened.
Yeah.
10 years. 10 years he spent monologuing instead of just rushing downstairs.
That's the most Doctor Who thing of all time.
And then, of course, there was a great shot where Bill's kind of in denial, and she puts her hand up, and it's the glove, which is such a great little touch. That's where the glove really comes in handy. And, you know, there's even great shadow work where Bill is storming around the barn, and the shadow is the Cyberman. It's really great work. Really well done.
It is. It's very cool. It's a very well put together scene. I think the way that they handle Bill and the Cyberman this entire episode, I think, like, despite the leap in logic you have to make to get there, like, they even say in this scene, like, it's happening because your brain is resisting the like brainwashing or whatever, the coding that they put in, like they just hand wave it essentially. So if you can accept that, then like the rest of this episode is phenomenal, and the relationship and dynamic that they have of Bill being like, "Oh wait, yeah, no, I am a Cyberman. This is horrendous." Like it's a really sad episode.
And we briefly touched on it last week, and this is when things in the country was very different. But you know, the whole theme about Bill here is a gay woman being converted basically to have no sexuality, because of course that's what the Cybermen do. And of course, in the time between last episode and this episode, terrible stuff has been going on in the country, where the Prime Minister has been the most transphobic a Prime Minister has ever been in this country, which is great.
Well, the most publicly transphobic.
Yes. But yeah, it's a terrible time for people in the gay community right now, and a lot of the themes of, you know, being converted and not being allowed to be who you are really comes out in this episode, which makes it more emotional than when I watched it like 2 weeks ago. It's terrible. It's terrible to say when, you know, science fiction holds up in terms of themes, because it just reflects on how shit society is. It's really depressing.
Yeah, it's I mean, it reminds me of that meme about like a sci-fi author writing a sci-fi novel, like as like a warning to society, and it's called like the Human Cruncher 3000. Like this was supposed to be a war, and then it's like the billionaire being like, "Yes, I just invented the Human Crusher 3000, like in that book. Isn't that cool?" Like like when people don't take the meanings from science fiction, and suddenly it feels a lot less like fiction, and you're like, oh, this is sad actually.
And Pearl Mackie gives such a great performance throughout this episode, and there's so many great heartbreaking lines where Bill says things like, people are always going to be afraid of me, aren't they? And it's like I'm hanging on in a hurricane and I can't hang on forever. And the biggest one for me is, I don't want to live if I can't be me anymore, which is just so heartbreaking. It's this is really well handled.
It is, and Pearl Mackie's ace. She's very, very good in this episode.
She plays Bill,
I think
not Ace.
You're funny. I think, and I have said this since series 10 first aired. Bill is so goddamn underrated as a companion. Yeah, because like she suffers from being after Clara and before like Yaz and stuff. She's kind of like this middle child companion, and because she only got one series, like people tend to forget about her. And like, but she's so goddamn good. Like I absolutely love her as a companion. I would have loved to seen more episodes with her and more series with her and her relationship with the Doctor. And I'm sad we only get one, but I'm glad that the one series we get, she's actually ace. She is ace. She gets a baseball bat, she beats up Dalek. But no, like she's incredible.
As a point, she's the shortest serving companion since maybe the early 80s or late 70s. She's only done one season, whereas Martha did one season, but then she came back the next season for like 6 episodes. But it's really sad that Bill only had 12 episodes or 13 episodes. Sorry,
and Donna only got one season as well.
Yeah, but she was also in Runaway Bride.
She keeps coming back.
And then she came back.
She also keeps coming back.
And now she's coming.
And she's about to come back again. Yeah,
she came back 3 times.
Yeah. Do you think we'll ever see Bill again? I doubt it.
No,
I doubt it.
I know. I also hope we don't see Bill again. But also, there is stuff in the canon. I think there's some sort of expanded media that reveals that Bill broke up with Heather or took a break in the relationship, and she went back to Earth, and she writes Nardole these letters, whatever. So she's still alive. She's still human, I think. She's human again. So
yeah,
I don't know what's going on there.
I don't know. Expanded media is like canon with like asterisk marks all around it.
and also she says she wants to snog the Doctor if she weren't a man. So, or if the Doctor wasn't a man. So she really wants to snog the 13th Doctor. That's 2 people who really like the 13th Doctor, apparently.
Clearly they've never met her. There's a scene outside where the Doctor is confused that the Bill is able to cry, because Bill's like, "What is that? Like oil or something?" And he's like, "No, that's an actual tear. I wonder what's going on." But they don't have much time to think about it because Mr. John Sim Master is here, and he's like, "Hello." That was my Ashen's impression. As he's just there, kind of being mastery, being like, "Oh, I'm here to be mean to Bill for no real reason, and I'm going to walk away again."
How hard?
I think just there to give some levity.
Bill essentially just had her gender removed, and he's like, "Oh, you got any spare bras? Now you don't need them anymore because I'm about to become a woman." It's really ooh. And there's also a great transition as so the entire time he's talking to Bill, she's a Cyberman, but when he walks away, Bill's suddenly Bill again because it's the Doctor's point of view returning, which is such a great device in this episode. It really works.
Yes, it is. It's very, very good. Then we follow the Master, Doctor, and Bill as they're like walking down by this lakeside towards the lift, I think it is, that they're heading towards, that they found in the woods. And I just want to take a moment to appreciate John Sim's Master outfit. He looks incredible. This is his best outfit as the Master. I mean, this is an entire like version of his Master's the best version.
Yeah.
But like the outfit is top notch as well. Like he looks ace.
Yeah, everything about his look in this episode, especially the goatee, just really works for him. It's hard to believe he's the same Master as the blonde skeleton man. You know, it's like you put them side to side, and there's a drastic difference here.
There is, but you know, he got cured from the skeleton man, so that's why he's different. It's also on this walk that we get our first hint of Capaldi regenerating, and yeah, I don't think I caught on when I rewatched this episode that him getting electrocuted is what causes him to regenerate. I don't know what I thought made him regenerate. I was just kind of accepted. Oh yeah, this is the regeneration episode. But it is not him. The cause of his regeneration, I don't think, is handled well enough. But also, I don't think it's really the focus.
Yeah,
like the point is not so much what causes him to regenerate. It's more him trying to resist his regeneration so that they can be like, hey, it's like the first Doctor.
But even
then they meet and then
it's
they
not
they
really
like kiss
the
a bunch.
first Doctor, is it? You know, in that episode.
Well, it's like the first Doctor when they shoehorn it in.
Yeah.
Like when they retcon and be like, yeah, he walked off in that episode for 10 minutes to go meet Capaldi for a bit. Like,
God, there's a whole lot of retconning that comes with the first Doctor in Twice Upon a Time, but we'll really get into coming Christmas. I
remember really enjoying that episode.
I remember hating the characterization of the first Doctor so much. But
I loved
we'll
it.
get into that.
I loved it. But yeah, the Doctor is kind of hiding what his regeneration is from Bill. Bill sees it. She's like, "What was that?" And the Doctor's like, just shut up, go away." He doesn't tell her anything that it is. And this is where we get the great line of, if I can't be me, I don't want to live anymore. Then in the woods, they discover the lift, and they're like, "Oh, there's got to be more lifts here, blah, blah, blah." But Missy's like impatient for some reason and summons the lift to come already. Like, even though the Doctor's like, "Hey, let's get the other lifts ready," Missy's like, "I'll just press the go button on this right now."
The whole reason she's doing that is because she wants to shag the Master inside of their TARDIS. You know,
yes.
they've been waiting 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks has passed, and they've just been waiting for privacy so they can fuck. You know, because every time they try to fuck, a kid wanders into the room.
I don't think the Master and Missy would care about privacy.
True.
I don't think that's going to be. I think if they wanted to do it, they would just do it there and then, wherever they were, regardless of who was around them. You know, and that's up. If that's up for other people to leave, that's on them. You know.
Yeah. But also, before the Doctor and Bill catches up with the two Masters, we have a little conversation about how Missy obviously can't remember what happened to her when she was a Master because of the whole timeline being out of sync or whatever, which is something a lot of people apparently missed because, you know, I remember being on Facebook in like 2017 after this episode aired, and people are like, but how doesn't Missy remember? Because we didn't pay attention to this
but
scene.
It's the but also it's the same rules as when the Doctor meets up with the other, and they explain it in every single Doctor crossover episode. They're like, "Why can't I remember this?" "Oh, because the timelines do timeline things." Like, they say it all the goddamn time. I was annoyed that they bothered to say it in this episode. I was like, we know this information. Shut up.
But you know, Matthew and I are in a Yellow Jackets Facebook group, and they keep asking the most ridiculous questions that gets addressed inside of the show. And it's the same thing. People just don't pay attention, you know? No,
they put the episode on, they look at their phone. That's how they watch TV, you know?
So
and then they're like,
depressing.
"Oh, that episode sucked." Like,
and you know, speaking
no,
of
you just weren't watching it.
Speaking of that, apparently there's a whole thing going on at Amazon right now where they're making shows dumber so that people aren't distracted. They don't have to look up from their phones to be distracted and rewind a bit because they're confused about what happened. That's a thing going on at Amazon.
How do you make a show dumber? You just hire worse writers? Am I finally going to get a job? Is that...
Yeah, that's the only way you'll get a job, mate.
God, I hate that. I hate that. But when Missy summons the elevator up, there's a Cyberman coming, and we get a cool scene. I like it. I'm curious as to what you think about it. Of Missy, the Master, and the Doctor all pointing their sonic devices like weapons at the elevator, ready to zap the Cyberman that comes out. It's very silly. It reminds me of the 50th anniversary when Matt Smith and David Tennant are pointing their sonic screwdrivers, and then the War Doctor's like, "What are you gonna do? Assemble a shelf around them?"
It's another thing of what the sonic screwdrivers can do. All of a sudden, it's a laser beam. It kind of
I get the Masters and Missy's one because they're laser. They're not like his one is he's got a laser driver, doesn't he? He doesn't have a sonic screwdriver. He has a laser gun essentially.
What the fuck is?
I don't understand what the Doctor's doing. What's the Doctor gonna do?
The fucking laser screwdriver can still fucking close our open doors. Missy used her umbrella to close the door earlier. Like it's fucking.
But it also fires a laser. It also fires a laser. And the Doctor's one doesn't, but he's still gonna point it at Cyberman and Sonic his insides, I guess. And also Bill's gonna fire her head laser, which is fair enough. The whole time, all I can think though is how much I miss the Sonic shades. Partly because I despise Capaldi's screwdriver. I think it's so ugly, and it's really sad that like Series 8 he just used Matt Smith's screwdriver, and then Series 9 he gets his Sonic shades, and I'm like, that's cool, that's unique, that's like, Rockstar Doctor Ace, awesome. And then this one, when he gets his blue TARDIS, it's a pen, it's a microphone, it does whatever the hell we want screwdriver. And I always forget about it because he almost never uses it. And when he does use it, I'm like, oh, that's ugly. Like,
I just had to use Google to search for a sonic screwdriver because I don't remember what it fucking looks like, even if it's in this episode somewhere properly. I am not a fan of the whole laser thing because it just reminds me of Harry Potter. It's the whole wand.
Oh yeah, them all standing still, firing like colored like energy beams out of their device, out of their wand at the Cyberman. It's a big Harry Potter vibes. That's exactly it. There was a reason I was like, what? This is wrong. This feels weird and awful. And yeah, it's because Harry Potter straight up.
And and also this scene just reminds me of how shit the Stephen Moffat's Cybermen look and sound. I don't like them at all. They just there's too much of a cuteness to them. It's like their heads are too rounded to the point where they look like anime characters, kind of. It's really strange.
Yeah. It's definitely not my favorite Cyberman design, but it doesn't bother me as much as it bothers you. I definitely prefer the original Cyberman for like the original New Who Cyberman that we see in this episode as well from the alternate universe. Like those guys, they feel heavy and they feel blocky and like metallic and like robot men, whereas the Moffat era Cybermen just kind of feel like guys in suits. Like they feel like rubber suits. They don't feel like metal heavy. These are scary dudes. But also like I adore the Mondasian Cybermen. And I think I really I liked them when we covered them before, but I think in this episode, like seeing them side by side with the other versions of the Cybermen, like especially like we get a scene later on where they're all like walking through the woods and stuff like that, and the Mondasian Cybermen are just kind of like skulking through, like, and they're terrifying. They're way more scary than the giant like marching like clonk 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 Cybermen. Just this like almost silent robot, just with their terrifying voice. Like the Mondasian Cybermen, top notch Cybermen, absolutely incredible.
I remember watching the series 2 episode where the Cybermen first appear. And I was like, oh yeah, but these Cybermen are pretty terrifying. And then I remember watching Doctor Who Confidential straight afterwards. They show a little clip of the 10th planet, and I'm like, holy shit, these are so much more terrifying. It's like night and day difference for some reason. Just like the fuzziness of the black and white image to me, I think, was the main factor to it, because I just don't know. It just felt so much more terrifying and intimidating because there's a human element. There's more of a human element towards it,
Yeah,
that's why that's why I'm excited for Doctor Who Unleashed to come back, because I love those little snippets of the classic series I saw when I was a kid, and they made the classic series seem like it was so much more scarier than it actually turned out to be. You know, they always showed the best parts.
Yeah. What I like about the Mondasian Cybermen, I think, more than regular Cybermen, is like the entire point of a Cyberman is to wipe away identity, you know, and to make them all uniform. And the Mondasian Cybermen are like blank, essentially. You know, like they don't really make noise when they move. They have these like almost human but not quite human voices, like they're all look the same. They all look these weird ass faces. Like they are terrifying dudes because they are nothing. There's nothing to them. Whereas like the other Cybermen are these big bulky, like they're robots.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, you're not like nothing. You're like a robot guy. I understand robot guys. That's not as scary. I can wrap my head around a robot guy.
Yeah.
But like just the idea of having no identity, nothing at all, not even clunky noises as you walk through the woods, is 10 times more scary to me than Robot Man. But you know, at the same time, I love Robot Man.
Yeah, so. I feel like you've definitely turned around on this, because I've been saying this all along. Every time we encounter a Cyberman, I've been saying this. You know, I'm glad you've turned around.
Yeah. I just, you know, just seeing them side by side in the same episode, it lets you compare them a lot easier than isolated.
Yeah,
because I like the Cyberman episodes when they're like, oh, I'm a big Cyberman, pew pew, and like this is exciting, yay.
I'd love the Mondasian Cybermen to come back more frequently, you know, because they are so great.
They are, but also their design is so dated, like them coming back like once or twice you can get away with. Them coming back all the time, people might be like, why am I paying for my TV license if this is what Cybermen look like?
You can redesign them and still make them as effective, you know? You can make them more modernized, like I guess Rachel Talalay did in this episode. They really worked in this episode, I would say.
Yeah, they work in this episode for sure, but I think if this is what they looked like all the time, you would be like, hey, why does that balaclava look so shit? You know, rather than it just being a reference to like how the Mondasian actually look. Like, you know, it would be like, can we update that? Like, let's make them look at this other costume we've got. This is better. But yeah, a bunch of Cybermen start because of the time dilation. They've been able to upgrade and evolve themselves into more modern looking Cybermen. How they got these designs, don't worry about it. How they got the resources, don't worry about it. How any of it happens, just straight up don't worry about it. In the 200 years or however long it's been, I think they say 200, I don't know. They say 200 miles, not 200 years. But however long it's been in the time dilation, they caught up on Doctor Who and they were like, oh, that's a cool looking Cyberman. Let's watch that. Let's build that one. And that's why they look like that. That's why the alternate universe Cybermen are there. I like that one. I straight up don't know. It's just
I think the Doctor has a line earlier on in the episode where he's being handcuffed, where he's like, sometimes we do parallel thinking, so you know, if there's a parallel universes, of course, we're going to land on the same design at some point or whatever. You know, one of my favorite lines in this scene is, according to my calculations,
even though those Cybermen were humans. Yeah, but like even like they have parallel thinking even if they're different species, because like the Mondasian Cybermen are different from their human Cybermen. They just kind of had the same idea of let's become robot guys. But I guess at the end of the day, if your idea is let's become robot guys, you're gonna end up making a robot guy that looks like the other robot guys.
At the end of the day, these costumes are reused because money, you know?
At the end of the day, they had them in the warehouse and they were like, let's use them.
It's why the Pandora Opens just had all those monsters appear out of nowhere, because they owned all the costumes. It's in the warehouse. Let's just hire a bunch of actors, put them in the costumes. We're done. Easy. Saves
money. Yeah. We then get a scene as it's like the eve of battle and people are preparing and stuff like that. We get a really annoying scene with Nardole where he's like reprogramming their guns, I guess is what he's doing with the computer, so that their ammunition is explodable. I don't understand how he makes the guns fire explosions, but the guns fire explosions now. But he has to show this, like he gets the gun and he's like, look at this, and he blows up the windmill, which is made of wood. and nobody seems that shocked that it explodes. And then he's like, well, you shoot that bush, and then he shoots the bush and the bush explodes, and then everyone's like, oh my god, how did you do that? And like why did that take 2 examples?
Yeah. You know, when you're using limited supplies, which I imagine they are using here, you don't need to do it twice. Maybe once, or maybe just an explanation, you know? Be like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
it will go boom. That's all you need to really say.
While this is happening, the doctor gets Bill to cut a hole through like an escape latch, essentially is what it is. It's just a place to get the kids out of the battle zone. And the Master and Missy have a very fun conversation about getting to their TARDIS, because their TARDIS is at the bottom of the ship. And there's no way of getting to it because, anyway, even if they did, it was broken. But Missy's like, oh, I kind of vaguely remember meeting this lady, and she told me to always take a spare TARDIS repair part, whatever the hell it is I need. And look at that in my pocket. I've got it. Which is a fun, doesn't make sense sort of thing. Because wouldn't she have always had that in her pocket, and why would she know to say this at this point? And also the timeline's out of sync, so why wouldn't it, like, doesn't matter at the end of the day. It doesn't matter. It's a fun scene. Also, the Master gets a big boner in this scene.
Oh yeah,
gets a big boner, and he's like look at my boner. And I was like, Jesus, I can't believe this is happening at like 7:00 on a Saturday.
But you know, Moffat, it's the same thing we always talk about when we do a Stephen Moffat episode. He's always horny. And if the Master and Missy could flirt, we will flirt. And do you think Loki kind of ripped this off? I don't think so. I think it's the same thought of the idea of someone being so narcissistic that they would probably fuck themselves at one point.
Yes, but they're also like, when Loki season 1 came out, everyone was like, "Oh my god, it's like if Doctor Who was good again." And there was countless comparisons between Loki season 1 and Doctor Who, which some of them I got, some of them I agreed with, especially because female Loki looks so much like Jodie Whittaker. It's insane. But you know, it was like, this is a sci-fi show, and there's only so many ideas. And if you're doing a show or even a script or writing any sort of thing where you have a character who loves themselves and then they meet the opposite gender of themselves, like you're gonna flirt with that idea of, oh, what if? Because it's just funny. Like, it's just a funny idea.
And also, I really like the relationship between Sylvie and Loki in Loki. Like, it really works for me. And the same thing with Missy and the Master. I think it's turned up to like 10 degrees in Doctor Who, because there's a whole element of them killing each other at the end, which is so much fun. But I really love about the scene.
I mean, you
also,
don't know what Loki season 2 is going to be.
True. What I really love about the scene in Doctor Who, though, is the start of it where the Master is starting to prepare how to do makeup. He's putting on mascara or whatever, which is so perfect. Because outwardly in public, he's like, "Oh no, I don't want to become a woman. Is the future going to be all women and all that?" And meanwhile, privately, he's like, "Yeah, I kind of embrace this idea. It's kind of nice."
I don't even know how private he's being about it. Like sure, when he's talking, he's like, "Ugh, women, gross." But then, like, he's going up to Bill and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to be a woman soon, by the way. Do you have any advice for me?" And like, he's saying it in a snarky way, but I feel like there's a hint of like, "Please, I would like some advice." Like,
is this good is this good trans representation? Do you think so? It's interesting.
I don't know, but trans people didn't exist in 2017, as what Twitter told me.
Yeah,
so, you know, like, they didn't exist until 2020, I think, is when the woke mind virus started infecting everybody. I might be confusing that with a different virus. I'm not sure.
Oh no, it's the COVID vaccinations. They cause 5G in the system, and 5G signals went up to tell people to be trans. You know.
Oh, of course, yeah. And there's the psyop on all the TV stations to include the woke agenda to brainwash us.
I feel like we need to put a disclaimer out. We are 100% being serious. 100%.
Serious.
No,
yes.
we're joking.
Yes.
We're joking. Just in case some people decide.
You might be joking. You might be joking.
He's joking as well. Don't worry.
The episode continues as we get more horniness, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, we had the scene with Master and the Missy being horny, and we got a very, very brief scene of Capaldi being like a nice dude with the young girl as the Cybermen are attacking.
That's not where the horny part comes in, no.
No. We get a slight bit of brevity where we can be like, "Whew! Oh no, the horny's still going." Because imagine if there was no scene, there was just back-to-back horny scenes. I think Moffat would explode. But he managed to slip in like a small breather scene where it's like, "Oh, Capaldi's a nice dude." Anyway, back to the horniness as lady who's from a show that I recognize. But what's she from? What is she from? God, I don't remember what she's from. I know her from something. I know her face. Oh, she's in Sex Education. That's what she's in. She's in Sex Education. Okay. She's the bully's mum.
I don't think I've met her yet. If I have, it's been a brief scene, so I don't know. But yeah, it's a lovely little scene where the lady's like, "Oh, you're an alien. I want to really bang you now." or is it because he's a robot?
Yeah,
is he a
and
robot?
Nardol's not. I always assumed Nardole was a robot. From what I remember in the Husbands of River Song, he's like a robot man that like works with River Song or works with Taskmaster Man. I don't remember.
Was he a man who turned into a robot, or it's been a while?
I haven't seen Husbands of River Song in ages, so I just remember the broad strokes. I don't really remember. I always assumed Nardole's a robot man. I have that in my head that Nardole is a robot man, so he must be of some kind of robot man.
Yeah, but we have to get super specific, otherwise we're just robot-cist.
No, the type of robot that he is Robot Man. That's the specific type of robot. He is Robot Man. That's the robot. But they're before they can make sweet robot on human love, they get interrupted by Cyberman. Oh my god! And the lady fires a gun at Cyberman, but Nardole's like, "What are you doing? That's Bill. Oh my god!" And it's a very sad scene where we don't see Bill as human. We see Bill as Cyberman just standing there, and it's like, it's okay, I understand. And they just kind of like sulk out of the room, and Nardole looks so upset.
Yeah, that is one depressed Cyberman.
Tragic.
You just want to give him a hug.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen. And Bill is goes out to talk with the doctor about something, but they quickly get interrupted by just literally everybody in the cast being like, "Hey, what's going on? What's the plan?" And the Master and Missy being like, "You guys know you're absolutely screwed, right? There's nothing you can do." But before we get into that scene there's a cute little moment where the doctor, instead of giving a gun to a little girl, gives an apple to a little girl, which is fun. And you know what they say, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Wow.
And there are some biblical references where the doctor's like, "Oh, you know, the first temptation."
Yeah.
It really starts to begin to feel like Good Omens in that 2 seconds there.
But then we get a incredible scene with the Master and Missy and the Doctor, where I guess it's supposed to be dawn at the moment because it's much brighter than it was, but it's still kind of dark. The lighting is bad. Don't worry about the lighting. It's a certain period of time. What you really focus on here is what Capaldi is saying, because I think I think this speech might be his best. Like, the war speech is up there for sure, but I think that this could be better than the war speech. It's not one that I've, visited enough times, because I've only seen this episode once before covering it on the show. So I even forgot that this was a speech that he gave, whereas I'd seen the war speech many, many times. But, this speech is incredible. It's goddamn fantastic, where he's like, why do I do the thing that I do? Why am I trying to save these people? It's just goddamn phenomenal.
Yeah, I think what makes it better than the war scene is that the Doctor is speaking from his heart. It's a personal thing to him that he wants his best friend to just be kind for once, you know? He's been battling his best friend
Yeah.
for like 2,000 years at this point. It's insane to think about. And what works about the scene also is that there's no score behind it. It's just open and raw. It's just Peter Capaldi being completely raw, emotional, and vulnerable. It's just such a perfect performance. And it's, well, I guess it's not the last major speech the Doctor has, because I guess he has more speeches in Twice Upon a Time, but I don't remember it all. But this is one of the last speeches for the 12th Doctor, so it's really good. I would love it so much. I adore it. And there's also that moment where we see over the Doctor's shoulder, and Missy kind of looks at him and considers it for a second, and then decides to go against him. It's just really heartbreaking stuff.
It is, because John Sim immediately is like, I wasn't listening anyway, and walks off, which, is fair enough, and you get the sense that, Capaldi wasn't expecting to ever convince the Master to stay. He was really speaking at Missy, he wants Missy to stay, and, he does, he almost gets her to stay, and she even admits, like, I want nothing more than to be good, but, I'm gonna go. This isn't gonna work. And you let out a wee tear, because it's so sad. Then a little girl blows up a bunch of Cybermen with an apple, which is a change in tone, but it's like whatever. I think the Cybermen like getting blown into the air and like falling from the explosions looks very silly. But this is also the scene where they're marching through the woods, and I was like, God, the Mondasian Cybermen are way more scary than the big bulky Cybermen, because if you look, like, they're walking side by side, the Mondasian Cyberman's just skulking through those woods, while the big Cyberman is going
what I just heard through Discord processing that was really interesting.
I'm sure it was spot on, exactly what it was supposed to be. But we then get what is essentially Nardol's like goodbye scene. Do we see Nardole again in the rest of the episode?
Yeah, we do. Towards the end of the episode, he's kind of waiting at the lift for the Doctor to come back, maybe.
Right. But he speaks to the girl like right at the end. But this is his last scene with the Doctor. Is he in Twice Upon a Time? God, I haven't seen that episode since it aired. I remember absolutely nothing about it.
Remember him being in it, but I could be mistaken. Maybe it's just a brief cameo.
I guess we'll find out at Christmas.
He is in the credits, so maybe it's just a cameo. Maybe he has a full role to play. I'm not sure.
Maybe he's like a main character. Maybe he's the main focus of the episode. I couldn't tell you. I don't remember. I remember that Mark Gatiss is in it.
Yeah. There's a lot going on in that episode. There's just so much. And there's also heaps of retconning, because Mark Gatiss turns out to be the Brigadier's dad or whatever. It's...
Yeah. Anyway, the scene with Nardole that we get is fine. It's basically Nardole, the Doctor convincing Nardole that he has to go save the humans. He has to go be with them and be their protector and look after them, because he's stronger than the Doctor. And he kind of like tricks Nardole into agreeing to go, and Nardole doesn't want to go because he would scam the humans, which is apparently what Nardole did, and what Nardole was like. And I was like, that doesn't sound like. Is that who you were, Nardole? Is that what you were doing? Like,
I haven't seen the Husbands of Forever song since it aired, so I guess that's his backstory. He just sold different parts to people, and he was a scavenger. It's something I do not remember at all. I just remember him being a funny wee little man.
Yeah. There's also a silly moment where the Doctor downloads a bunch of stuff off a laptop onto the sonic screwdriver by sucking it out the monitor. Like, the Sonic in this episode does literally everything. It can do absolutely anything.
Yep.
You know, it's a pen in the last episode. It's a microphone. It can download stuff. It can fire. It can destroy a Cyberman. It can just everything.
It's basically the Doctor's smartphone. It can just be a smartphone. You know, he can probably call people on it, and he can probably download apps, count his steps. You know.
And, Bill decides that she's going to stay, and Nardol's upset at this because he's like, oh, what, Bill gets to explode? I want to explode, and I've never related with the sentence more. Personally, I would love to explode. It sounds like a great way to go, you know? Anyway, the episode continues on as we get a very good scene saying goodbye to, or, the beginning of saying goodbye to the Masters as John Sim is about to leave down into the elevator, but Missy's like, "Hey, come here," and John Sim's like, "Are we about to make out? Is this really happening? Oh my God, is this going on?" As he approaches up to Missy, and Missy gives him a big ol' hug and is like, "I absolutely loved being you." And then she had been playing too many Assassin's Creed games, and she hidden bladed him. She stabbed him. She stabs him dead. Which is it's an interesting way for John Sim's master to go.
Oh yeah, being killed by himself. Missy kills him so that she can be born. You know, it's fucked up in so many different ways.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's like, it's just a perfect way.
And then he kills her so she can never regenerate.
Yeah, which doesn't really work.
Yeah,
does it?
which definitely works. Yeah,
but also this score.
I just find it interesting.
Is fucking really great. It's just like creepy woman singing. You know, it's great. It's eerie.
Yeah. It is. It's very good. I find it so interesting that, in the fantastical world of Doctor Who, the way that the Master dies is he just gets stabbed. Like, it reminds me so much of how Dobby dies in Harry Potter.
Oh God,
where it's like you've got this world full of magic and spells and everything, and how does he die? Throwing knife. Wah! Like, it was like, I remember being told when I got that spoiled for me when I was a kid, and I was like, that sounds dumb. What do you mean he just gets stabbed? Like,
that's not even the dumbest thing in Harry Potter. Oh, that's not gonna be a good series.
No, the dumbest thing's all the transphobia. Got him.
Yeah, that's true. That's accurate.
Well, I mean, I don't remember there being any explicit transphobia in Harry Potter. It's more the aura around it that is being retroactively added.
Also vague hints of
stuff.
Racism and
Yes. Anyway, but this isn't a Harry Potter podcast.
Oh God, could you imagine?
We then. Yeah. We then get a very strange scene between Bill and the Doctor. I guess it's. I guess the tone they're going for is kind of like, thanks for being such a great ally, Doctor. But Bill's like, hey, you know how I'm gay and I like girls, and the Doctor's like, yeah. And she's like, thanks for knowing that. Awesome. Bye. And it's like, okay, I guess we needed to be reminded that Bill was gay. I don't know what the point of the scene was, but well done, ally the Doctor. It's cool. Well done. Good job.
Yeah, what I remember about Series 10 was a lot of conversations about how in every episode Bill somehow announces that she's gay in like every single episode. And it's something like become a common theme for some reason. I guess it's because it's just hammering home the fact that, it's a main theme of the season, I guess. Which it isn't too bad. It's not too distracting, but it's such a weird line to leave Bill on here. I'm not really sure what the intent was.
Yeah. It is. Even Capaldi, like, when she's walking away, he looks at her like, what? Why did you say that? The episode continues onwards as we get a scene with Missy and the Master, and it is the last scene with them, and it is perfect. It is the perfect scene. I remember adoring this when it aired. I remember being absolutely like, this is absolutely fantastic writing, where she loads the Master into the lift, and she's like, okay, bye-bye, I'm gonna go team up with the Doctor now, because we're bestest buddies. And the Master's like, nah, and he zaps her. And then the two of them just kind of laugh about it, where he's like, I can't believe that, you made me regenerate, and then I shot you in the back. Isn't that just perfect? Isn't that just the perfect way for us to go? And really it is. Like, the Master both killing themselves to make them turn into themselves, and then killing that version of themselves because their past self didn't like that version of themselves that they're about to turn into. It's Doctor Who writing top notch. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah. Not just Doctor Who writing, it feels more Stephen Moffat, the timey wimey.
Oh, it's very Moffat. Yeah.
It also
a complete
it's something
loop.
that a Master would do. It fits so perfectly for the Master. And yeah, what a great arc for Missy overall, though. Just her redemption towards the end, but also she can't redeem herself because before she's able to get to the Doctor, she dies, and that's just so depressing. Just the chance of redemption just totally wasted on her. It's so sad.
Yeah, and perhaps if I can try to headcanon it a little bit, because she gets zapped with what the Master calls the full blast, there's no way you can regenerate. But obviously that isn't true, and she does regenerate. But perhaps when she regenerates, she ends up becoming resentful that the Doctor, one, didn't try harder, didn't save her, left her there on the Cyberman planet after she regenerated, and she had to find her own way off and whatnot, etc., etc. And then you get Sacha Dhawan's like, I hate you, Doctor, how could you? Although also they explain in that series that Sacha Dhawan's like that because he found out that of the Timeless Child was the Doctor, and he was jealous that the Doctor was part of what made the Master, and it was dumb and stupid and dumb. But I like Sacha Dhawan. I want to see him back with some good writing. It's a good ending. It's a good ending for Missy's Master.
Yeah, the thing is, Sacha Dhawan does have a Big Finish box set coming out. He got announced like last April 2022.
I remember.
Nothing's been confirmed yet. I guess apparently it's because the BBC won't let them talk about the fact that maybe it's coming out soon, because technically we're still in the 13th Doctor era because the 14th Doctor hasn't started yet. So I think once the anniversaries are over, we'll get an announcement that the Sacha Dhawan box set will be out soon. So I'm looking forward to that, and also the Fugitive Doctor box set. So hopefully Big Finish are able to round out these characters, because they really need rounded out.
They really do. Also, Big Finish wasted no time jumping into this new era. Yeah, they wasted zero. The second it's over, they're like, okay, box sets. Then we get a scene that certainly has got special effects added to it, as Capaldi is running through the woods, exploding Cybermen with his sonic screwdriver, and the explosions are definitely on screen as he's running through these woods. It doesn't look great, and he gets zapped by a laser that also doesn't look great. But, I like the emotion of the scene more than I like the scene. Because, you really feel for, like, Capaldi's just trying to buy them time. And as he's blowing them all up, he's just listing off planets that he's fought the Cybermen on and times that he's beaten them. And it's a wonderful bit of, get your Doctor Who notepad out and check off all the names that you hear from episodes you've seen.
Yeah, right. One of the planets he names is from, like, a TV comic strip from, like, the 60s, so this is Doctor Who still
perfect.
Peppering in these references to the comic books. And, of course, in the 60th anniversary, we're getting our first major comic book stuff. And I'm looking forward to that. More comic book stuff, It's going to be fun. I have no familiarity with the comic books at all.
Yeah, same. But that comic, the 60th anniversary build-up comic with Tennant, comes to an end soon, doesn't it? It ends
I think it already ended.
Before the 60th? Has it already ended?
What
happens? Do we know what happens?
God, I don't fucking know. I didn't keep up with that shit. But I believe a trade paperback came out like last week or something. So
interesting. Okay, might pick that up just to give it a read before the 60th, just to be like, is it going to be relevant? I bet it's not. I bet he's not going to talk about all the furries he hung out with for ages.
And there's the gay wedding. I don't think he's going to mention that either.
I don't think any of it was really relevant. Or that he immediately fought the Daleks, like, as soon as he regenerated on that cliffside. Dumb. It's dumb.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of
yeah.
it either. Just the idea that he went on this big, epic battle and it only lasted an hour, you know? Something that's really weird. Like, this Doctor's life is only going to last 4 hours if each part of his anniversary special is going to take place in, like, almost real time.
David Tennant's Doctor only lived 3 years. Like, canonically, he's like, I'm 900, I'm 901, I'm 902, and then he's like, oh, I'm dead. Actually, I think he got to 93, so maybe 4 years if you want to count 900 as a year.
Yeah, something I'm not a big fan of either. You know, I don't like the Doctor aging in real time. I like, like maybe 20 years passed between stories or whatever. That'd be cool.
It's what I liked in when Moffat took over with Matt Smith and Capaldi, where he's like, and 1,000 years have passed and 500 years have passed, and it doesn't matter. Like, the Doctor is 2,000 years old now.
Yeah, because in like series 1, Matt Smith was like 905, and then he comes back in series 6 and he's somehow 1,200 now. I think Capaldi is 2,000 years old.
Yeah. I don't think Jodie ever talks about her age. I don't think Chibnall ever addressed it.
She actually talks about being like a couple of 1,000 years old in Fugitive of Dune, so not a specific age, but I don't think. But still, keeping with the tradition of her being 2,000 years old at least now.
And we know she was in prison for how many years was it? She was in prison.
Oh God,
it's like several years, 90 years, 9 years, 10 years.
Oh, I don't
20 years, 30
know.
years. She was in prison for a long time.
Thinking about Harry
sitting
Potter.
in prison. Yeah. For a long time sitting in prison. And but she left Yaz alone for 6 months. That was the real. I remember that being the real issue. That was the real bit that was bad. That was
Oh God.
Yikes. But we then get a cute scene after the Doctor, he blows everybody up and then he blows himself up in a giant fiery explosion, which he somehow is okay from. Don't worry about that part. It's more a dramatic explosion than a real explosion. We then get Nardole waiting at the lift for the Doctor.
Another thing is, when the Doctor is lying there, he's looking up in the sky and there's a great shot of like the fire inside of his eye, and he's looking up at the sky and he's like, pity, no stars. This is the third story in a row where a character looks up at the sky and sees no stars.
It says no stars, yeah, Jesus Christ.
And also, the song that plays here is the song that Ood sing at the end of Planet of the Ood in Series 4. They start singing it to the Doctor and Donna, and they're like, there's room for a verse for you guys. And then it eventually gets used in the TARDIS pilot scene in Journey's End, when everybody's flying the TARDIS, and now it's used again. So we just heard this a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Well, you might have heard it. I don't listen when the show's on. So. But the scene we get with Nardole, where he's waiting at the lift for the Doctor to show up, but then the little girls are like, he's not showing up, you idiot, let's go back. Also, that lady still wants to fuck you, and he's like, hell yeah, she does. And that's really that entire scene. It's a fun send-off for Nardole. I'm sad that we never see him again. I love Nardole. I would love for him to come back. That would be cool.
Yeah, but he I guess he's still on the spaceship, protecting these people after
just
2
looking
million
after
years.
I wonder if he treats it if he's like a god to them now, because surely they would just assume that he would like age with the rest of them, but he won't because he's Robot Man, but he will be able to like have all this knowledge and look after them. Maybe it's worth revisiting Nardole, God Nardole, see what he's up to.
It is a little bit like the Matt Smith Regeneration episode where he's in the town called Christmas, and he's basically their protector for hundreds of years. It's kind of the same.
Yeah. It is kind of the same, but there's only so many ideas that you can have about characters.
True.
And speaking of having only so many ideas, Moffat hates giving characters good deaths, because we then get a scene with Bill saying goodbye to the Doctor where she's very upset as the Cyberman, but then we get like a transition from the Cyberman into Bill, which is all really good. It's really well performed and ace. And then suddenly a lady comes out of the puddle and I punch my TV screen because I hate it. Like, I don't remember what happens in the next episode with the puddle lady and Bill, so I want to see what happens, but I have such a negative feeling and a negative memory about this entire arc because I did not like it when it happened, when it first aired, and I don't remember the specifics about it, so I'm looking forward to being upset again. But Puddle Lady comes back and she's like, hey, you can be a puddle with me now if you want, because I'm like a god. I could turn you into a human if I wanted. I could just undo the Cyberman stuff, or I could make you a puddle lady with me. And Bill's like, I'll be a puddle lady, thanks, okay, mwah. And it's like, what is happening?
The thing is, I don't remember the pilot of the series 10 episode, the pilot, too well to remember what the deal was with all this pilot stuff and the puddle stuff. But it's inferred that basically she got inside of Bill and occasionally cries out. I don't know. I haven't seen the next episode in a long time, so I'm kind of holding out my opinion of what this is until I go back to revisit the first episode of the season and the next episode of the season.
It's not good, though, is it? It's not good. It's not good.
The thing is, it's Stephen Moffat trying to be optimistic. Doctor Who is an optimistic show. It's a bit dark for a companion to just become a Cyberman, full stop. It's kind of grim.
I love it. I want grim endings for my companions. It's dangerous.
I love it too. But Doctor Who is optimistic. Stephen Moffat is a bit optimistic himself. And
yeah.
I go back to what we talked about last week, where Stephen Moffat lost his mum during the writing of his story. So I can imagine him being kind of like thinking about an afterlife and just really.
What if my mum
that.
was a puddle lady?
But yeah, you speak about the fact that Heather, that's her name, because it's an actual Doctor Who reference. It's a Doctor Who reference inside of a Doctor Who, because Bill and Heather, that's William Hartnell's wife, and of course William Hartnell's nickname was Bill, so it's a reference to the first Doctor. It's a fun thing, isn't it?
That is fun. Yeah.
But yeah,
doesn't make it good, but it is fun.
But yeah, apparently, like 6 months after they leave the TARDIS in this episode, Bill decides she wants to go back home, and she becomes human again, and she goes back to university, works with Chip Shop, and she occasionally writes to Nardole somehow. I'm not sure how.
I don't like. I don't like that. I don't like that as an ending for Bill either. Like, either she's a puddle lady in space or she's dead. Don't just make her go back to doing chips. Where's the arc in that? Where's the anything in that? Where's the growth and the development? At least in space she gets a happy ending, or at least in death it's a tragic ending. Going back to serving chips is a nothing ending.
Yeah.
That's just, you're just doing nothing with her.
Oh yeah, I don't like that as an ending for Bill either. It's kind of what we spoke about when we did Death of the Doctor and Sarah Jane Adventures. What Russell T Davies wants from a companion is that we're still doing stuff. We're still doing good in the world. Like, Joe's like an ecological hero, basically, in the Death of the Doctor. Because, in the 90s, a lot of Doctor Who books came out. They were dark and grim books. And basically, I think in the books, Jo Jones is an old lady who lives in a house in the middle of the woods, and she's sad because everyone died, apparently. And that's her life. For her being a traveller around the world, saving people and stuff, It's nice.
Yeah.
But the Bill ending doesn't sound too appealing to me either.
No, it's silly. Also, when they're in the TARDIS and Bill's saying goodbye to the Doctor because she just assumes that he's dead, the puddle lady's not wet anymore, and that I don't understand, and it really, really upsets me to the point that this episode is a 0 out of 10. No, I just don't understand why she's not wet anymore. Like, was there a canon reason why she was wet to begin with? Because her spaceship's the puddle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
I guess.
And then, that just...
I guess
make
when
no
she's
sense.
traveling through puddles, she is wet briefly. But also, Bill was wet. She didn't travel through a puddle, so that
Yeah,
doesn't
she
make sense
made.
either.
She
so.
made. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's just dumb. It doesn't make sense.
But I guess there's some sort of perception filter over them to make sure they're not
Sure.
always
Yeah.
wet.
Fuck it. Why not? Yeah. Perception filter. Yeah. Just move on.
Because if they travel the world and we're still wet and we're dripping, you know, it's going to lead to a lot of problems. We won't be invited into like hotels or stuff, you know.
But they could just sneak in through the pipes. They're puddle people.
Sneaking in through taps.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it being dry makes no sense. 0 sense. You know, like if you're gonna make Bill become a puddle person with her puddle girlfriend, commit to it. You know, like be like, yeah, these guys are soaking now. Don't just be like, now they're dry. Don't worry about it. You know, where's the commitment?
I will say it is a pretty good effect when they are wet and dripping. I think that effect is very solid and it looks cool. Even though
I mean, they nailed it. They nailed it. They nailed it since they nailed that effect in Water of Mars. I imagine that there was very much the same technique as what they used for the Waters of Mars. Which that effect is still terrifying. Like that makeup with their like crooked lips. Oh my god, yeah, incredible episode. But we then get a pretty fun when they leave the TARDIS. And almost
speaking of them
by
leaving the TARDIS, I don't know if you remember the first time you watched this episode. Was it live or was it on BBC iPlayer? Do you remember?
I would have watched it live through BBC iPlayer.
Right, so
because
you wouldn't
that's how I watch things.
You wouldn't have been watching the BBC One Scotland broadcast of this because once Bill and Heather leave the TARDIS, there was some fuck up on BBC Scotland where all you could hear is the music. There was no dialogue.
Oh.
So I remember sitting there for like 2 minutes thinking, that's an interesting way to end the episode where you have a flashback to companions where there's no audio, there's no dialogue. That's really weird. And then I realized, oh fuck, something went wrong here. I mean, I had to go on BBC iPlayer to watch the end of the episode. That was really weird.
That is really strange. But yeah, no, I watch because I don't watch terrestrial TV because I don't even know if we can. We don't have a Freeview box anywhere, and we don't have like a satellite or a skybox or anything like that. We just use the Fire Stick, and on the Fire Stick just use iPlayer. So you know, I watch live TV via iPlayer and various streaming services. I don't remember the last time I watched BBC on. I don't remember the last time I watched proper TV full stop, but I don't remember the last time I watched the BBC One on proper TV outside of iPlayer.
I mean, Freeview has caught on to the fact that most people stream stuff now. They're launching like a Freeview service, but it's an app instead of like, you know, an actual thing you stick for your telly with an aerial and stuff, which sounds a lot better because I don't watch TV that much either as myself. You know, I watch the occasional thing on Sky because I have a Sky box because my parents have a Sky box. You know?
Ooh, bougie guy. Look at Mr. 1%.
I maybe watch like 2 things on Sky a month. There's nothing on television. Hundreds of channels, nothing is on. It's insane.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, there's like 15,000 streaming services, and I watch reruns of shows I've already seen. But anyway, the Bill and Puddle Lady leave, and we get that flash scene of all the companions saying, "Doctor, doctor, doctor," and it's like nostalgia hit out your goddamn ass.
Oh yes.
And then the Doctor jolts to life.
Yeah, that scene is very reminiscent of what we just covered in Caves of Randrasani, where it's obviously Peter Davison lying there, and he's remembering all the companions going doctor around him, and the Master is just laughing because he wants them dead. Yeah. So that's our only exposure to Anthony Ainley as a Master so far, which is perfect. But apparently Stephen Moffat wanted clips of classic companions. I think it works better at its modern companions because we already had the same scene essentially with classic companions. Might as well just do it with modern companions this time.
Yeah, I think either way works. I think with classic companions, it would make me like it like more, because I'd be like, ooh, classic Who, this is fun. I like it when the show ties in. It's like that really bad Robin Hood episode when the Doctor's like, oh my god, there's me on the wall, and we see all the classic Who versions of the Doctor. I always like it when classic Who bleeds in to new Who. It's always fun because they're so different. It feels wrong.
Yeah. One of my favorite examples of that, I can't remember which story it is, but there's an episode where Colin Baker lands on the planet, and he just suddenly realizes there's a giant portrait of John Pertwee on the wall because he already came to his planet before.
Amazing.
I just love shit like that. It's so fun.
That is fun. But the Doctor bursts to life, and he's like, oh my god, I'm about to regenerate, and he yells, no, I don't want to, and he manages to stop the regeneration, but the TARDIS lands somewhere, and he's like, whatever you've got planned for me, TARDIS, I'm going to ignore it. I'm not regenerating. I'm done regenerating. Regenerating is stupid and silly, and I heard I'm going to be a woman, and that's woke. And that's exactly what he says. And then
he also quotes the Tenth Doctor and says, I don't want to go.
He does. And then he steps outside into the snow, and suddenly we're watching the previous episode as he yells and shoves his hands into the snow. And isn't that just a terrible cold open in the last episode? Because it takes an entire 2 episodes to get back here, and by the time you're back here, you forgot that it happened.
It's one of those fucking things that really annoys me when movies and TV shows do this, but it's a cliffhanger. They're showing the cliffhanger at the very start of the last episode.
Yeah.
An hour and 45 minutes before the cliffhanger happens. There is one extra twist added on to it, but, you know, it just annoys me whenever they do this.
And I love the twist when it shows up, as we hear little hums coming through the snow, and we're like, who could this be? As we are greeted with the first Doctor, of course not played by William Hartnell, as that would be terrifying. He's back from the dead. This is instead played by a guy from Harry Potter who's in everything, and name I don't know. What's he called? Really good actor.
It's not William.
William Hartnell.
Bradley.
William Hartnell.
Something Bradley.
Bradley Walsh.
Cooper. God, is it something Bradley? David Bradley.
David Bradley, yes, who I love. I love David Bradley. I think he's such a goddamn good actor.
Of course, he's technically reprising his role here because he did play William Hartnell, and I guess he technically did play the first Doctor in An Adventure in Space and Time, or An Adventure in Time and Space, whatever that fucking movie is called that we're covering next month.
Space and Time, you were right. Space and Time. I've never seen that movie. I'm really looking forward to watching it.
Oh yeah, it is great, and also there's less research for me to do because it's just a straightforward adaptation. You know, it's a really good movie.
Yeah, and I don't know if there is another man on the planet who could play William Hartnell like David Like, he looks almost exactly like William Hartnell. It's uncanny. They did a very good head shape for him to be Hartnell. It's crazy.
Richard Turndall wasn't a bad choice either. He doesn't look. You don't know who that is, but he doesn't look a lot like
I have seen him. That's not true. I do know who that is. I have seen the clip of him playing the first Doctor. Thank you very much.
I do prefer David Bradley, but Richard Turndall does he's a bit underrated. I think he is still pretty solid as a first Doctor. You know.
Also, we're forgetting Grand Moff Tarkin as the first Doctor.
True, I guess.
You know, that's he was technically playing the first Doctor.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah, but I really like him as the first Doctor. I remember being crazy excited when this reveal happened as well. It got me very, very, very hyped, and I adored this episode when it first aired. I don't think I like it as much as I did watching it back, but I still love it. I think it's a solid 8 out of 10 finale. I think it's fantastic. I think the monologue Capaldi gives is brilliant. I think the arc with Bill is really good until it suddenly isn't anymore. The stuff with Missy and the Master is perfect. I think it's a really solid final, and a fantastic send off for Capaldi, which is the ultimate redemption, really, because his first episode, we spoke about it for ages, is not great, and his final episode is fantastic, and it's that. That slog you had to go through in Series 8 to get to this in Series 10 is worth it. I think it is worth getting through a relatively rough series for two fantastic ones.
God, yeah, Capaldi has one of the best arcs as the Doctor. I think him and Christopher Eccleston are sort of tied first, because Christopher Eccleston also has a brilliant arc as the Ninth Doctor. I don't think any other Doctor really gets a solid arc like these two men, Peter Capaldi is so spot on as the Doctor. He's just brilliant. He's my favorite modern Doctor, hands down. Because there is that little bit of a Pertwee edge to him I really like.
There is, yeah. I think he's my favorite modern Doctor as well. If we're counting modern from the reboot, not from the movies, because if we're counting the movie, then he's up there with Paul McGann. But he's definitely either tied first or close second my favorite Doctor of all time. I absolutely adore Capaldi. Like, I can watch him all day as the Doctor. Absolutely adore him. And I wish more people appreciated him. I think as time has moved on past his series, I think more people have come to love Capaldi as the Doctor and come to appreciate what he brought to the role. But I remember being in school and Series 8 and Series 9 airing and people just not watching it, and I was like, why aren't you watching Doctor Who? It's so good. And they're like, the Doctor's old, I don't want to watch it. And I'm like, no, you're wrong, the show is great, you're missing out. And nobody would watch it, and it was frustrating.
And also Series 8 was when the ratings started to slump as well. I think the main thing about Series 8 is most episodes aired at 8:30 at night, when most kids are ready for bed, they're exhausted.
I know I am. I know I'm exhausted coming half 8.
I know, same here. But such a great season final for Series 10. Just a phenomenal episode. I really love the Bill stuff, especially now, which is, it's only more impactful as events continue to go on in this country, and it's really well handled. I really gravitated towards the Bill stuff in this episode because of that. And Pearl Mackie's acting is phenomenal. Every time she's crying, you feel it. She has such a good cry face, which is really solid, and you just really feel for Bill the entire episode. Just heartbreaking stuff. Such a great companion.
Yeah, I love Bill. So underrated. So goddamn underrated. Despite the ending. But, maybe I'll change my mind when we finally cover the Christmas episode. Maybe I'll like it. I doubt it. I really doubt it. I doubt it. But anyway, that brings us to the end of this very long episode. Our episodes covering Capaldi are always so goddamn long. Next week, we are concluding. Well, I guess not really concluding. Not really concluding, because we're about to roll on to the 14th and then the 15th Doctor when they air. But we are concluding for now our look at Doctor Who chronologically next week, when we look at Jodie Whittaker, the 13th Doctor. Somehow we are already on Jodie. That doesn't feel real.
Yes,
where's the year gone? What have I done with my life?
Yes, next week we are doing Fugitive of Jadoon, and I chose this episode because it's the highest rated episode on IMDb that we haven't covered yet, and I really don't understand how it's the highest rated episode. I guess it's because Captain Jack comes back, and it's a terrible episode.
I will see when I rewatch it. I've seen this episode 2 times before, because I watched it when it aired, and then I rewatched all of Jodie's era last year, and I don't really remember what I thought about it last year, but I remember liking it when it aired, and I have relatively positive feelings about it. But also when it aired, we didn't know who the fugitive doctor was, what they
Yeah.
would do with the fugitive doctor, or what the timeless child was, or what Flux was. There was a lot that still hadn't been revealed, and there was a lot
Yeah.
more disappointment coming our way. And ever the optimist, I always try to be like, maybe it'll be good, but it wasn't. So maybe looking back now, the jaded, awful, miserable person that I am today, I will not like Fugitive of the Jadoon. But we will see. We will have to find out next week when we cover the episode.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic that I'm going to love it. I'm going to love it. 11 out of 10. Best episode ever. Best
Maybe
episode of the year.
Maybe it will turn into a Doctor Who the movie situation where you really love it. And
I
you
can convince
me
you.
to love
Yeah,
it.
I can
I
convince
don't
you
think
that it's
so,
good.
but
Yeah, we'll see. We will see. And then after that, it's the news, because it's the end of October somehow already. So
Yeah.
exciting stuff coming ahead. My God. In the meantime, you can follow this podcast on YouTube, or you can watch it in video form at youtube.com/ at Who Watches Who Pod, where you can see our lovely faces. Wow. You can also listen to it in audio form wherever you get podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. There's an RSS feed to just stick us in to whatever app you use. It's brilliant. It's cool. Welcome to the future. You can also find us on Facebook at Who Watches Who, on Twitter, x.com at Watches Doctor, if that's even a thing. Apparently the EU might be like shutting down Twitter because of all this stuff happening with Israel. So maybe by the time this episode out, x.com has collapsed. I hope so. I hope so. It's gone. I hope it's gone. I hope we live in a world where it doesn't exist anymore. That'd be cool. You can follow my gaming channel that I do called Psychedelic Gaming Hobos. If you just look up Psychedelic Gaming Hobos, it's a good time. It's chill. Other than that, we will see you next week. Bye.